So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much to join us. We are here in our first webinar this year with the diversity team, and we are gonna talk about visible and invisible disabilities. And I have the honor to have Trevor here with us, who is like a specialist on the topic. And Trevor, I want you to introduce yourself and explain to us how the whole topic of accessibility ended up being part of your journey, how it all started.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon to everybody there. The hat is part of my avatar. I go by the Web Detective, and that was part of the reason how I actually got into accessibility. And if you don't mind, as Janice said earlier, I happen to be sat in São Paulo today, so it's a little bit too warm for a hat like this. So I'll remove that, and you'll see the real image of me. So. How did I get into this? Well, a lot of it was just by pure luck. I think we've all been through the COVID era and we had to make some changes. And during that time, I spent a lot of time over the last 25 years working in marketing and helping people to grow their online business. There I was in COVID, and I was helping a non-profit to promote their charity with mobile apps. And I bumped into this guy online and he looked up to me and says, "Oh, love what you're doing. But why didn't you make it accessible?" And I look at it and says, well, the thing I know about Mr. Apple or Mr. Android, they provide these features on the actual devices for everybody to access the content. He went, well, yes, that they do. But one of the content that you're using is coming from websites and it's not accessible. I went, okay. Why didn't you do it? I said, well, I didn't build their website. I knew nothing about it. I only knew about mobile app side of it. And from there, he said, well, may I suggest that you contact your client because they are really close to having a lawsuit pending for them because their website is so bad that they really need to do something about it. And I said, well, I'll let you talk. No, 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 no. You do that. Well, having gone to the charity and told them all what I discovered, because I'm that sort of person, they went, well, it's COVID. We can't do much with this. How can you help us? And being that kind person, I went, well, let me find out. And that's what got me into the accessibility arena, just by pure chance that somebody pointed out to me and that my client couldn't and wasn't able to do anything about it. End of the story was, yes, I found a solution for them and they avoided that lawsuit. They never had any pending. That's what, 5, 6, 7 years ago now. Um, so I think that was a win-win because now it brought me into elements to meet with people like Jana, and I'm also working with a non-profit who specialize in bringing communities together of people with disabilities and without disabilities for those who want to support the disability area. And that's how I started, Jana.
That's really awesome and really inspiring. Well, when we talk about accessibility and making our websites and the content that we share accessible, I think it's pretty easy for us to just think about professionals, people that are like on wheelchair. We just drive our minds to that type of disability. But when we talk about accessibility, I want you to expand, to help us expand our minds. Who are our audience? Who are we making accessible for?
Well, in fact, everybody. We all like pretty things. If we don't need any visual tools to see a website, we like things that are attractive. And really, that is one of the ways to make a website accessible. If things are easy to follow, the cognitive element that a lot of people will suffer when they get to elements on a website, and it's like, well, what am I meant to do here? It's a challenge, it's a task. Or when you're reading something and you say, well, what am I actually reading? Doesn't make sense. So the accessibility is not just for those who have the physical disability, it is for all of us because we're all there trying to get through information as quickly as possible, clearly as possible. And we don't want to spend time going back over things just to do that. So I always say to everybody, if you focus on the 25% of the world's population that has some form of disability, you're actually encompassing the whole 100%. Why? Because there are many tasks, and I'll give you some examples a little bit later, of elements that we use in our daily life that were originally designed for people with disabilities in mind, but we use them all the time and thinking that they were designed for everybody. Well, that's what it's all about. It's not us and them. It's for all of us. We all at some point, and here's a very good example. Hopefully, we'll all become old. And if we become old, our eyesight tends to fail slightly. So if we're just thinking of that, when is it you want to read the small print of a contract or the small print of a privacy policy or the small recipe that has been written on a website in small grey text? What are you going to do? Well, I want to enlarge it. And that's where the part of making everything accessible. But if you can give the option to the users of those websites, then everybody feels that they're being catered to.
Awesome. And okay, when we think that it's for all, that we are considering everyone and so many different needs, I think it's interesting to think, and in our prep call, you expand my mind to that as well, on understanding that we need to provide accessibility for people that are just with temporary special needs. Who are they?
Mhm. Well, I think one of the obvious ones is maybe a nursing mum. You have your child there, you're nursing, and maybe you're right-handed. Great. But if you happen to be using your right arm to support your baby, how do you use the mouse to navigate the website? Because nursing is not a 2-minute process. Some babies take a little bit longer to be fed. So maybe you want to do something else. And if you're there with the right hand now is incapacitated because you're just holding a baby, well, isn't that causing an impact that you cannot maybe check in and maybe book the flight that you want to go to or check your online banking because I really need to use the keyboard to navigate so I can actually focus on the main thing that I have in my hand. People with sports injuries, again, maybe arm or hand related, maybe some of us suffer with temporary blindness. We may have a cataracts operation. Maybe we have some other operation done that impairs our vision. So if the text is small, then again, this is not a full-time disability, it is a temporary one. That is something where I think we often forget, and as you said right at the very beginning, when we think of people being disabled, we seem to think of the physical one of somebody sitting in a wheelchair. And that's not the thing. That's just a lack of mobility. That's a mobility issue. That's not a disability issue to some degree. Maybe their ailments have put them into the wheelchair, yes. But we have to consider the use of how we interact with anything digital online. And usually that requires sound, vision, and some form of mobility with the hand, whether it's a keyboard or we can use a voice control as well these days.
And and yes, and how easy it is, uh how would you say, like, okay, I understand, I got it. I want to guarantee that my content is for everyone. I understand that doesn't matter if it's a visible, an invisible disability, if it is a non-disability or just a temporary mobility issue. How would I start it? How I start? What are the first steps? What do you think will be more inclusive that will guarantee that it will amplify for the majority? What will be your suggestions? How I start it?
Ideally, the best way to get started is find somebody who can test that content for you. If you know somebody with a disability, ask them, how do you navigate my content online? Very informal, very easy. You're going directly to one of the sources where they can tell you straight away, this was easy for me, it was complicated for me, and these are the reasons why. You know, so let's take some of the non-disability ones. How many of us suffer with migraine? And with migraines, we are light sensitive. Well, when you look at a screen and it's got a white background, sometimes that might be just enough for us to say, you know what, I don't want to read this at the moment. I'll come back later. Maybe you don't want to come back later because time won't permit. So you'll go from one website to another, which means you're losing business, or maybe you're losing the opportunity to interact with those people. So when you take that, get some who's a specialist like myself, I'm always happy to look at that. But some of the things that you can look at, if you have a web developer or a designer, and they are two different people, talk to the designer, talk to the developer, and make sure that the flow in which you want the path of your visitor to take is clear and understanding what the purpose of why they're there. First thing you want to do is why you're at the website. What are the call to actions? Make it easy, make a simple process. Stop pop-ups. Because the more interruptions we have, and when we think most people use mobile devices to interact with the internet these days, those little pop-ups turn people off from actually proceeding with the website. So these are just some of the simple things to think of is how quick can we get the person from where they start to the end point of the journey that you want them to have. And it all comes down to design is the first element that you should consider.
Awesome. And I love that you brought the fact of asking for the audience that you were looking for, right? And I think that it's
Hmm.
such a it's always the, I would not say the only, but it's always a direction that when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about diversity, it's always something that people feel uncomfortable, but it is the right direction. Like, go to the ones that you want to include and ask how you can make it easier for them, what they really need,
Mm.
what is their
Yes.
perception, right? So it's
Hmm.
easier than it sounds, and yeah, and it will always give you the direction exactly to where you wanna go. And talking about always like when we are bringing diversity and inclusion, I think using the right, making sure that we are using the right words, it's always like something that makes people sometimes not even talk about it, like, oh, I don't engage on the topic because I don't know how to talk with, I don't know what are the right words, I don't know what I should or should not say. And here we have like a really global community, and I think it's interesting to dive into the whole, like, should I use disabled, handicap, disability? What is the right? What is wrong? There is right or wrong. What is the difference?
Good question. And at the end of the day, if you don't know, ask. Don't you know? Tell people, I'm illiterate. I am not knowing to this area. Help me. And usually the person that you're asking will tell you their preferred ways to address what the issue is, or what the disability is, or how you can make them feel included as opposed to being offended. Having come from England, we will use the word disability because we think it's calmer and nicer. In America, they prefer the word handicapped more. Now, for the Brits, it's like, oh no, you can't say you're handicapped because there's more of a stigma in that. But that's social feeling. And I don't think sometimes we should get hooked up on names and tags because at the end of the day, we're all human. We all want to be accepted. And if we all look up and think about those that might speak foreign languages, there are easy two ways to say something. One can be very direct, one can be very polite. Well, that's very helpful. But in translations, things will get confusing. And it's the same thing. We're talking about a new area of language which is used to describe something we don't understand that well. And if we don't understand it, ask. It's much easier to say, I'm the ignorant, educate me, as opposed to avoiding it altogether and then making the foible of like, well, you're not able to do this, are you? Well, who's not able? Is that because the person has an incapacity to do something? Or, well, what's an incapacity? That's usually a lack of knowledge in most people. Well, that's why we're not able to do it because we have the incapacity to think about, oh, maybe I offend somebody because they have a physical restriction. they don't mind. As I mentioned earlier, I work with a group with people that are blind, and I inadvertently did this. And I said, you know what, Dan? You're just not seeing it from the same angle as I'm looking at this. And I went, oh, and he chuckled away. He went, I love that you just managed to say that just in the without no harm. But it's good. No, I would never see it the same way. Ha 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 ha. But yes, when we think it logically, and that's the thing, if you've got icebreakers there, don't be afraid. And now when I talk to people with blindness, I don't feel that I have to tiptoe around the incapacity to not be able to see what I can see.
Awesome. You just remind me of a conversation that I had a couple of months ago about this whole thing about who is incapable and what it's incapacity. Like, is the individual incapable, or I'm the one not providing everything that it's necessary for this person to have access to what I expect? And this is with visible and invisible needs in our daily routine.
Mhm,
Like, oh, this if I'm if I'm hiring someone with any specific to Simone point, like people with special needs. It's like it's a special or it's just a different need. We all have
mhm,
special needs depending on where we are, where we live. There's so many things that will put us in the box of like, oh, I have this special need due to accessibility, to
mhm,
language barrier, whatever it is. And I think when we talk about with this community in the global mobility, it's something that really connects with the journey of the expats about adjusting to something that is different. And I think when we are talking about people with visible and invisible disabilities, it comes with a lot of learning to adjust to something that it's new because we are welcoming someone in our team, because this person is entering the workforce, because this person is moving to a different country. And yeah, so it comes with a
mhm.
lot of adjustments, learning, and feeling more comfortable with something during the process. And I want to dive into the language barrier, like that the other day we talk about it as well. Here we have people that they have different first language, and we manage to communicate in English. But what is your experience? What are the numbers when we talk about language barriers?
Well, I like the idea when we talk about the word, let's take the word special. At the end of the day, we're all special, are we not? So by coming in and say, I have a special requirement, you're kind of elevating that person to a position where maybe it feels that why do they have to be elevated when we're talking about inclusion? If we think about it in the sense, that again is segregating people out into a special group. So why would we want to say it's special? No, I have an extra requirement maybe, or I require some assistance. That is much easier. I kind of sit on the other side of the thing. Well, why are we segregating people out into smaller groups when we're trying to talk about inclusion?
Yes.
So, I guess I've just split a hair with you there, Jenna. But yeah, I think in that sense, is sometimes we inadvertently put people into segregated groups just by the vocabulary. And sometimes it's just easy to say, Jana, I understand you need some either some extra help or you have a requirement today. Let's see if we can do that. And I'll use Christy because Christy's got a camera on. Oh, Christy, understand that you need a little bit of extra assistance. How can we deal with that? You would feel special because you're being addressed, not because I pinpointed out that you are special. We're all special. We all like to think that we're special. We all grew up being told we were special by our parents or our guardians. And now all of a sudden, when we get to adults, that's negated, and all of a sudden, the only way you can be special is because you've got something different about you. Well, we're all unique. So I think when we play with the language, sometimes we've got to drop those labels. It creates stigmas, you know, disability, handicaps. Again, you're segregating out. Oh, I'm a blind person. No, I have a visual impairment because visual impairment now encompasses more people than somebody who's just blind. And most of us, if we sit here and think about it, if you're blind, we're so, what's the word? We think of it as so white and black. Oh, they can either see everything or they can see nothing. Well, visual impairment now tells you there are areas of grey, and pardon the pun here, that they can't see everything as clearly as everybody else with perfect vision. So I think those labels, in one sense, when we talk about inclusivity, shouldn't really be there that well. We acknowledge there is a difference, but let's not say people are special when we're all special because we all want to be included.
Absolutely. And to your point, it's the other day I was hearing from this mom of a child that has this, special needs, and she was really frustrated because at the school of the kids, they were just they were having meetings to adjust to talk about what they need to make it accessible for all of them, and only the parents of the kids with any any requirement, different requirement, were joining those conversations. And that was her
Hmm.
frustration. She's like, always when we talk about creating inclusive environments, we see that we are just talking with the people that are part of the group. And we really need to
Hmm.
bring the others who have somehow some type of privilege or be, to your point, we all need some, we are all special, but if
Yeah.
in that environment you feel that you have some privilege, that you are not part of the ones who will receive, who will be benefit from it, it's you are the person who really needs to join that conversation.
Hmm.
Want to
Yeah.
understand what you can offer, to understand their challenges, to be more to consider and understand that it's a reality, and see how you can support. And I think it's something so simple, and we lack to
Mm.
keep talking to the same audience and not expanding to amplify and understanding that it's something that impacts all of us. And when we talk
Yeah.
about impacting all of us here, of course, here at the Paradigm, and I love that, uh, we are in the global mobility industry, but we connect because our values, our vision, it's different. But of course, we are all professionals here. And I want to talk about numbers, percentage, because when we talk about this is for everyone, and I want to guarantee that everybody leaves this conversation keeping in mind that the people out there who need or not temporarily or permanently visible and invisible, not disabilities, just temporary mobility issues, they are all buyers. They're like
Hmm.
individuals who consume, they buy, they travel, they have dreams, they have families, they have, and I want to amplify that idea that it's like those are our clients. And when we talk about disability, non-disability, what are the numbers that we are dealing nowadays? What are the percentage? Who are we including when we talk about making
Mm.
our platform more accessible?
Well, when you talk about just the disability community, it works out on average 1 in 4 people. So that's 25% of the population. Now, that's with registered disabled people. What about all the people that are not registered with disability or a disabled person? How many of us have traits or tendencies of maybe a little bit of autism, maybe a little bit of ADHD, maybe some cognitive disorders that we all have, but we're slightly off the scale or near the spectrum that are not classified. What about those who still suffer with COVID? You know, where their mind suddenly gets wiped out because, like, oh, what was I thinking of? I suffer with that every day, so I'm going to blame COVID for that one. Uh, so all of us actually have ability to be in that group at some point during our lives. I mentioned about grandparents is a very good one. We all think of grandparents because they wear corrective lenses. Now, how many men suffer with color blindness? Quite a few. But how many of us were more likely to suffer with cataracts? You know, it's a repairable scenario, one of the easiest operations to have. But how many? I don't know how many. I've never done the research to find out how many cataract operations there are in a year or how many of the population do that. But if we think about how many people we know that's had a cataract, probably in our family first, and this is where I start talking about the element. If we focus our business on generating results at 25% of the people, most businesses and most relationships are all based on referral, good word of mouth. Now, let's say we focus on the 25% and we include them, we make everything accessible for them. What is the first reaction they're going to say? Oh, I was with company XY, and guess what? They actually welcomed me and they provided me with a great service. Who are they telling? Well, not everybody in a person with a disability is disabled in that family. So theoretically, one in four, the other 75% of the family don't have a disability. Now the family thinks, well, company XY was really good. I'll let you go and check them out as well. And because you feel that you're also welcome, that causes that reputation to be liked and trusted. So technically, by focusing on a smaller, you're focusing on a larger amount. Now, here's some figures. There is a group of people in the US, and I work mainly in the US, so apologies if you're not in the US, who spend, I think it's just over $9 billion on when they spend online. Now, this is I don't call them a group of people. I call them basically they're influencers because they're teenagers. They spend the most money online, but they don't really spend. Who are the people spending? It's usually the parents. They spend, so they're influenced by the parents to actually do the spending for their children. The second group who spend around $6 to $7 billion online is the disability community. So if we take teenagers out of the equation because they're more influencers, the real power decision makers, the people who are going to search for services and products online, are the disability community. So why aren't you accessing that as a factual information? Not only do you get 25% who it can influence the other 75% of the world's population, but they are the largest spenders and consumers online. I think as numbers, that is sufficient. We don't need to know that the number of categories behind it.
And it's interesting because I didn't know that, but when you bring the information, it's like makes a lot of sense. And I think that it's a lot about this conversation. Like it's not like the completely unknown. And I think that's why it's so important for us to create those environments to bring uh this to have this conversation ongoing because it's bringing light to things that we kind of know, but just we do not, I don't know, we lack on spending a little bit of time reflecting on it and thinking how I can make the best of it because I care for the community because I wanted to make more money and guarantee that I make my content available for everyone everywhere with any necessity, whatever it is, but to see how simple it is and to understand that when we are talking about making it accessible, we are talking about the person right next to us. And sometimes we didn't even thought about it. The whole thing when you brought to me the moms who are breastfeeding was just like really, I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. I hear my friends sharing about how hard it is, how long they spend uh, uh, on that, and how they end up like somehow stuck because they cannot use the computer or anything. So
Hmm.
it is making accessible for people that are really next to us, and I think that it's fascinating.
And that's the thing, it's like there's a lot of elements that we use today that were designed with people with disabilities in mind, but we don't think about it. Now, I think one of the most oldest and famous one is the curb cuts, originally designed for wheelchairs to get off the sidewalk or the pavement to cross the road. Well, now it's essential for everybody. Again, people, mothers or parents with prams or strollers, bikes and carts, luggage. How often do you go to the airport and you use that curb cut when you're getting chasing for your plane? Because your case are on wheels now. We make life easier. Closed captioning, originally designed for the deaf, hard of hearing. But now we use it in areas where maybe public areas. I can't think in the US, but I know in England quite often they have TV, the news channel on. Well, it's a public place, but they've got the closed captions there, so you can actually read the news articles while you're there. Airports and railway stations probably do the same sort of thing. So it's widely used where maybe you've got a noisy background. Um, SMS text messaging. Again, originally designed for people with hard of hearing because they couldn't hear the phone. So the idea was to send a text message. Um, how often this was going back? Do you remember books being put onto audio cassettes or CDs? This was for blind people. Now we use things called Spotify. We all use it. We pay subscriptions to it. But originally, this was a service given free from the local authorities to people who couldn't read books. We're all using digital elements. We dictate to our phones so that therefore we can send an email while we're driving home. Or maybe we have the text read to us because we're now driving, we can't use our mobile device on the. But then again, these were all built for people that had either audio or visual restraints. Now we find it as a multitasking tool for us to use in our everyday lives. What about the predictive texting? Here's another one for you. I love predictive texting because I type with four thumbs and one finger. I'm hopeless. But I tell you what, that predictive texting corrects so much for me. But then that was designed for people with motor impairments who had difficulty in pressing the keys in the right order. We take it as, oh, isn't this a nice feature to have? But the concept was originally, let's help the people, as we said, with special needs. Well, no, they have a need, they have a requirement, and we've all adapted to it. So it's not difficult to suddenly think of a website, digital content, whether it's PDFs, forms online to fill out, to be much easier. Because if we make it easier for everybody, 100% of the population can actually point out the flaws and the things that go wrong with it much quicker than only 25%. But the 25% are now included as the 100% of humans.
I love it that it's like the third time that we are talking, and I'm still like, you keep like putting my mind blowing. And you remind me about the importance of not just putting it all there, but to guarantee that people will have access to control, right? Because if you have the screen reader, the cap, I think like can be, if we put it at all without giving them the possibility to adjust, control, that can be just as disturbing or as not usable as not having anything, right? Can you dive into? You are on mute. Something happened.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I keep pressing mute and I pressed it twice. So yes, giving people the options. If you think about the light and the dark contrast, a lot of people say, "Oh, use dark mode on your computer these days." Why? Because it saves the battery power on your thing, but sometimes you want to change that contrast or you want to change the color. Now, when it comes to website accessibility, there are, I think it's about, what's it, 86 different requirements under the WCAG of how websites should really be designed to be almost perfect. You can't get perfect because people have multiple disabilities. Therefore, you'd be coming down to maybe there's only a few hundred people in the world who has this condition who require X, Y. But we have to at least feed the solutions to the populace first. And then as it goes, hopefully it encompasses more. Those 86 things. Now, if I was to make all the text font 20 on a website, for a lot of people, they're going to look at, well, that's way too big. It's going to take me hours to scroll on my little phone all that information. Well, if I've got a little tool where I can put that back to maybe a 15 or a 12, makes it easy and acceptable to all. I don't want the white background, or for some reason, I don't like the shade of green that they're using for their call to actions. It's just horrible. It's not because I'm colorblind, because I can't see it. I just don't like the color of it. Well, let me change all the call to actions to maybe purple. I like purple, but I can do that. So giving people access and opportunities to turn on and off features, especially visible features, keyboard features, that makes it more interesting. Why? Well, at the end of the day, here's another stat for you, Jana. 10% of websites are only accessible to people with disabilities.
Oh,
When somebody with a non-disability goes to a website and they see all the action, they will interact with that user menu to change the features because, oh, this is new. What is it? It's great. And they adjust the environment and the time that they spend on that website to see the information and actually use it, which as a business owner, we design websites. Google looks at websites basically, how long do people spend on that site? And if you're making it attractive for people to have options, then that's the best way to actually give them those options.
awesome. Yeah, I love it. Really incredible and crazy how time goes by really fast. I really wanted to there's of course if there's uh anything else that you as the specialist wants to really dive that I miss, please bring it on. But I really wanted to open a space for comments, questions, perceptions to our audience. I can You can unmute or write in the comments. Um, Feel free to join and be part of our conversation.
I'm sure there are some questions. Don't be afraid. As somebody says, there's never a silly question. It's just pure education.
A silly question. And I understand that the topic can put our minds to a lot of reflection, and I think that it's super valid and 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 worth it. And yeah, to what I said in the beginning, it's the challenge that was for like in the beginning it was really easy for us to like okay what we are going to talk about in the diversity and inclusion group this year and was really an agreement with my colleagues there here in Rico, Valeria, Jordan, like okay let's talk about visible and invisible disabilities and but was such a challenge. We all like the team really worked really hard to look for specialists or people who really experience that in their daily lives to really bring us like reference data as you were sharing. And we had such a hard time. The whole team really invest time on a big list of people that we reach out, and from the majority, we didn't even get a response. So, with that point, I want to say that again, when we talk about inclusion, we really need to be intentional. Would be really easier to just like, okay, we reach out to over 10 people and we couldn't get like any response. Let's consider something else. For me, it just made me more like saying that was so important. Like if it's so hard to find someone to bring the topic, means that not a lot of people are talking about it. So we need to. So I really want to say that I think it's really important to make it an intentional to because when we are including, we are making possible, accessible to everyone. We sometimes don't even know who are we including. And to your point, like we will create a reputation, a brand that yeah, for sure we will attract the right people with the vision in the right place, with the values in the right place. And I think that's really important and really special.
I agree. There's always opportunity to add extra people to your group. And I think when we talk about accessibility, let's look at these areas first. They all have a voice, they all got an opinion. We all have, you know. Um, and, and sometimes it's just a matter of thinking, well, if I was to do a little bit of something, how many people will it impact? Now, I think when you're on digital, we're all screaming for somebody's time. So you've got to stand out in this loud noise. And I think, Jana, you know of this one, being in Brazil. One of the things I've seen on governmental websites is you see this little avatar sat there in the corner, and you think, well, what is it? Now, I found this just by pure chance, and I clicked on it. And you think that this is a human trait. We're curious beings. And it turned out that it was providing sign language for all the content online. Did that keep me engaged in that website? Of course it did. Now, here's the ironic thing. My Portuguese isn't that strong, so I had to read the Portuguese, and I suddenly realized it was doing sign language in Libras, which isn't like ASL or British Sign Language. So it was completely different. And I knew a couple of signs, and I went, I don't recognize anything. But then again, I don't understand sign language. But it kept me there on the website, and I went back to it thinking, well, they care. And I think it was March of this year that they've actually made it legal for all governmental websites and businesses working with the government to actually have an accessible website, just like in the US, 2026. Again, that is a legal requirement, which only means that in time everybody has to do that. Even though there are laws out there in the EU and across the world to do this, don't get caught up in the legal aspect of it, because when we do, I think most of us tend to think of, well, begrudgingly, I don't know much about it, so I'll do it. There are, again, in the US, there are ways for people to be re-compensated. You can be reimbursed for some of this that you actually spend on accessibility in your business. Why? Because they want everybody to be inclusive. And it's not an expensive task to suddenly switch and make your point of view, your business, your content accessible to 100% of the people. It's really easy. It really is. Doesn't it requires a little bit of planning. But if you start today, by tomorrow you've already got one piece of extra content there. It's one less to be remediated, one less to actually think about who did I exclude. Nobody's here to exclude people.
Absolutely. I love it. I want to keep it open for people to reach out to you as the specialist, as the detective who can direct, support, and help in this journey to guarantee that we make our content for everyone, that we are including everyone. Um, not because we are all special. And
We're all special.
I want to thank everyone to join us. Feel free to as well reach out to me, to anyone in the diversity team for suggestions on topics. Again, reaching out to our audience. What would be topics that would be relevant, or uh, challenges that you all are facing, that if we bring uh, as a topic on the as for inclusion will really impact your routine. We are open for suggestions, for ideas. If I could ask in this, I would love if the ones who want to open the camera for us to take a picture to celebrate this moment would be really awesome. I understand the ones who are dealing with a lot of things, but always great to see the smiles, the faces here. I truly appreciate the time that you guys, that you all were giving into this. Makes me really happy. Um, Thank you so much. I know, like, for some of you all, like, it's really challenging the whole time zone. So thank you so much. And I really hope that we keep the conversation ongoing on this topic and on other topics to guarantee that we make our community for everyone and what we do accessible for everyone as well. So smiles, 1 second. And I think I managed to put everyone on the same screen. Audrey, Massimo, help me if I'm not doing right. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate the time. Audrey, Massimo, what is our next event virtually? Do you have by heart?
Massimo knows.
I
The
know
December
because
4th?
I received the request. It's the Grow event and it's for, let me just quickly check.
It's for December 4th.
Thank you, Tux.
Yes, with Alexandra Fishman, who is actually here. So that will be great to see you all with us for our Grow webinar on December 4th.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks a lot, Trevor. I learned a lot with you. You expand my mind in a really special way, and the channel is open. And I hope we will have other opportunities to team up and collaborate.
I look forward to it, and thank you for inviting me to be here, and thank you for everybody for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.